The Alldus podcast is brought to you by Alldus International, supplying your expert AI and digital transformation staffing needs across the US and Europe. Today, you are listening to our ServiceNow series, where we interview the best and brightest of the industry to share their story, advice, and views on the exciting world of ServiceNow and digital transformation.
You're listening to the Alldus podcast ServiceNow series. Our guest today is Peter Castillo. Peter is the Director of Technology Operations Center Platforms at Toyota Financial Services. Peter, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, JP. Really happy to be here.
Yeah, delighted to finally get you on the show. I know we've been talking about doing this for a couple of years now, so we've managed to wear you down. Lots to cover. But let's start with yourself, as we do all of our guests. Could you share a little bit of an overview of your background in technology, from where you got started early on, some of the interesting roles you've held along the way, and take us up to today, where you are as the Director of Technology Platforms for Toyota Financial?
Yeah, sure. It actually started quite a while back. In short, I couldn't find a job in fast food. I couldn't find a job in retail. So I ended up where we are here talking to you. But that journey is actually pretty interesting. And the only reason I got into IT was because this staffing agency needed a quick delivery to New York. And apparently I'm the quickest delivery around. So I ended up delivering these speakers to New York. And then before you know it, I'm like typing stuff into their shipment system. And from there, I kept jumping from different jobs to different jobs, and eventually landed in software engineering. In between, I did a lot of different things. I was a graphic designer, doing package design, stuff like that. I was also an Apple genius back in 2005. Yes, when it was actually a real thing. And then from there, I became a full stack developer. And again, just to reiterate, this all happened by accident. But just like any good accidents, one thing led to the other. I kept fumbling my way, into different things until I fumbled my way into ServiceNow, which was actually a beautiful thing. I always say, as a software developer, you develop your babies, and then eventually they kind of get retired because, they've been 10 years out in the market, and then something else comes in that's more fit for purpose. And in my case, that was ServiceNow. And I think that was around Berlin was when I first saw ServiceNow. We were just using some of the XML-based integrations and Java APIs. And then from there, I ended up in Morgan Stanley. I ran, the ServiceNow platform in practice there. I was there for about 10 years. And now I'm here in beautiful Plano, Texas. Working for Toyota Financial Services. And the funny thing is, it's really weird. Just FYI for your folks, most of you who do know me from the Northeast and, heavily into financial services. Hello to all my friends in all the big banks. I am in Texas now. So, and I do have my Texas license. So that's how I got here, of all places.
Yeah, quite the change. Again, you referenced your long time at Morgan Stanley leading the ServiceNow practice, which is how we got to know each other. But quite the shift in recently, moving not just company but also city, and you find yourself now at Toyota Financial. So let's set the stage for people listening. Everyone will know Toyota as a brand, but you're working specifically in the financial services group. Help us understand the difference, and let's talk most importantly about your new role, its responsibilities, and what you're going to be doing for the business.
I would like to think everybody knows who Toyota is. They are the biggest auto manufacturer in the world at the moment. And also what people don't know is Toyota is actually I think 100 or 200 different companies. They have different services. But obviously bread and butter, is auto manufacturing. But one of the services in that orbit to make sure that we we are able to move people to, purchase the things that they need to purchase so they could move, like vehicles or whatever it might be, is there's the financial aspect of it. So Toyota Financial Services, what we do is we are the biggest auto lender in the world as well. And we provide different types of services. Bread and butter, same thing as with Toyota, it's automobiles. With us, it's auto financing. There are different other services, like think of it as a full-fledged financial services firm. So there's like different services, but we focus mainly on financing and leasing vehicles, not just for Toyota, but also for other companies and other auto companies.
Which explains one of the questions people may have had listening, why the switch from Morgan Stanley, the biggest financial institutions in the world, to Toyota. But that description there makes a lot more sense, because you're essentially working within a finance company, albeit specifically focused on the automotive sector. So thank you for that. Let's jump into the new role in more detail. At Morgan Stanley, you ran the ServiceNow practice. What are you tasked with in your new function at Toyota Financial, specifically through the ServiceNow lens? What's the core mission, and what have you inherited?
So basically, the position itself is basically the platforms that support the Technology Operations Center. To be clear, 80 to 90% of that is ServiceNow. So for the most part, that is the work. We have been practicing ServiceNow here for over, I believe, 12 years. So it is somewhat, from a process perspective, it's a very mature practice. But just like any company who's been doing the same thing for 10, 12 years, from the engineering perspective, there are a lot of things that I always say this, and for some of your listeners who know me, I say this a lot. I always say the best practices of 10 years ago could be worse practices today, because we only knew what we knew back then, but now we know what we know, and the higher bar that we set for data security, privacy is totally different. So part of what I'm doing here is to solidify the ServiceNow practice, to make sure that we are able to scale and that we are able to produce high quality code using ServiceNow, and to also support the increasing demand for the IT service management practice, the asset management practice, and the different other modules that they use. Because one thing that I've noticed about ServiceNow, they might not be best of breed today, but if they're in the market, they do get better, just like everybody else. They mature, and if they're lucky enough, they become really mature, and they just, I don't know. I don't have to, I'm preaching to the choir, but basically the point is there is more and more dependence on ServiceNow for critical systems for it to be able to support it. So in short, to summarize that, the scope of use for ServiceNow is always expanding, and a lot of companies, it is a critical system. I always say that ServiceNow is not the sexiest of things, but in reality, I think of it more as a utility. Like it's the lights, it's the water. It's just on. Sometimes you take it for granted, but just like lights, especially in Texas, energy, there's more and more usage as, here in Texas, it gets pretty hot. So there's more usage in the summer. People move to Texas. So therefore, there is more and more people, and there's more consumption. So it's not just a question of what new things could we add, but how do we support as we scale up? Because, growth is, that's the only surest thing that you're going to have. Like, your market will change. So you have to be organically capable, not just from a process perspective, but also from an engineering perspective, where it can scale, and you're able to give the capabilities that people don't think they need yet, but they will be needing it 2 years from now.
For sure. Yeah. And hearing you describe, look, the natural evolution of a mature environment, it still needs to keep up to speed with the latest developments and new functionality. And what we know, and you've touched on there with ServiceNow, it's always looking for new ways to service the client in new areas, whether it be CRM or the adoption of AI agents. So you've got almost two projects on your hands, is get the existing practice up to best practice today, and then also prepared for future use cases in new applications or advancements. So it's exciting, but a lot of work. So if you and I speak quite a lot, and you're using the crawl, walk, run approach. When you look at the near-term roadmap for Toyota Financial and your team and the work, what are you excited about? What are you hoping to accomplish over the next few years with this group?
So what's beautiful about Toyota is number one, we're a very stable company, and it is it's good, and sometimes it's not so good. So when I got here, there's actually a third thing to what you just said, which is also 12 years of technical debt. So, all of these things have to be juggled and
Yeah,
managed. And part of being, stable is because you use the things that works, right? And, as we all know, most people are averse to change. I am not. I welcome change. I actually think that change is the only constant thing that we could depend on. I always say, if I stay still, I will fall asleep, like literally. Like, people who know me, I'm like pretty high energy. I'm always moving. Actually, I just flew back yesterday. I went to a hackathon over in Austin, of all places. And it was so invigorating to see students, doing creative things. But the point that I'm trying to make is you need that excitement. So when you have technical debt, you have a very mature process, a mature team, everything is very stable. Sometimes you don't want to disrupt it because it works, right? But I believe if we stay still, you know, we will fall behind. And we
yeah,
don't want to fall behind because, the market is very organic. The demand is also very organic. And at any turn, things could change. So, I know everyone talks about self-service, automation, and it, you have, the deterministic, non-deterministic type of decisions that you have to do. Whether you decide, maybe you do decision trees because those are like, deterministic rules. But then you have things for unstructured and undeterministic things where, we have to rely on artificial intelligence, like agentic. So there is a space for all of this. And for us, the challenge is finding the right mix because we don't want to go too fast because right now it works. So we have to find the right use cases where it's fit for purpose. And I think there is actually room, you know, uh, I think a lot of people mistake automation for AI and agentic. It's not the same thing. So, you do your automation if things are deterministic, if you know exactly what to do. But you use agentic stuff if it's not deterministic or you're trying to save time. And but for me, what I'm excited about when it comes to AI in general is the work that I could actually do. It's not the speed of how, like my day to day. It's nice that it could like speed it up. I get it. I mean, that's what we do, right? We have our assistants. It makes me read email faster, summarizes this, does that. But that's not what I'm excited about. I'm excited about the time saved and the accuracy of the decisions I could make, so I could build more stuff. So that's what I'm excited about.
I like that. It's a great answer. Staying on the topic of build, I know one of the things you're tasked with is ensuring that the ServiceNow team within Toyota Financial is the right size, the right skill set, and is fit for purpose. And you're investing in the efforts and pipeline of building and developing talent because there's a
Yes.
big bottleneck out there. And a lot of people are looking for the finished article right now, the senior people who've been doing it a few years, which is difficult. The thing I like about your approach is you're reading the tea leaves. You're looking a few steps ahead, and you're focusing on the top part of the funnel, and helping grads and people who are looking for an early start in technology. Where should they go? And ServiceNow is obviously a great option for them. Can you talk to us a little bit about your strategy and approach to building a team and how that's going to play out over the next few years?
Yes. So it's no surprise that ServiceNow is a very niche type of skill. It's not your typical, I would go, for example, to a university, and I won't say that I want to learn ServiceNow. The sexy is, I'll learn Python, the latest library, this, I'll, use Terraform or whatever, some other, technologies so I could quickly build stuff. But what people don't realize, and this is what I really appreciate about ServiceNow, it is, it actually manages the systems that manages IT. So it allows you to manage, the IT pipeline, whether it's delivery. And I was actually, when I was in the hackathon, I actually talked about this during, part of the keynote, was the fact that the keynote ceremony, the fact that there's a life cycle, like our kids, and when I say kids, I mean like college students, have to remember that the development is the sexy. That's the most beautiful thing because that's really what you create. But it has to come from an idea that you have to develop. And then once you actually develop it, you have to nurture it to make sure that it could grow, that you could use it for the next 10 years. So that entire life cycle is, to me, is really what's beautiful. And, uh, earlier in this interview, I mentioned, I retired my babies. That's exactly what I mean. And that's exactly what I feel, that if I do something right, it's not just an idea, it's not just something that they develop, but it's something that's used for the next 10 years, but it has its shelf life. It's either we do the next iteration or it gets replaced. So for me, that's the same thing with the pipeline. I have to go where the talent is, and I feel if we have to set ourselves for success in the future, that is in the colleges, the universities, people who has to be excited and has to know the fact that there is an entire section of IT that's beyond just creating. It's managing, creating the controls, making sure that the data that you have is secure, that your customers are happy. So there's an entire ecosystem that they don't know about. So if they decide to do ServiceNow, I think that's a beautiful thing. Whether hopefully I prefer that they do it in TRS. Just to be clear, I'm talking
Yeah,
general
of
here,
course.
but I would, uh, we are hiring, I guess, and we are also looking for good interns because I think an internship pipeline is great because it gives students the ability to see what's how it is in the real world beyond the coursework. And then for us, we get to see, and feel the energy of somebody who's unencumbered by guardrails. So I didn't mention this, but my number one key to my success is my ignorance because okay, I walk into the room and I kind of like lower the IQ. And the reason for that, that's very intentional because I'm an open book. It's like I don't come from a traditional engineering background. Uh, I only went to college so I could convince my son to go to college, and I got marketing because it was the easiest thing. So, for me, everything that you do has to be very practical. There has to be a purpose. And I want to make sure that when people work for Toyota, they know what they want, you know, and the fact that, and obviously this is a ServiceNow podcast, uh, I think ServiceNow has a very, very unique place in the market,
Absolutely.
because it's just, like I said, it's what manages the management systems in IT.
Yeah.
So it's not something that you will see in the headlines. It's not something that uh, our kids, meaning the college students, it's not something that they know. Like unless you're actually working somewhere, that's the only time you'll hear about it.
But this is a good place to finish the interview. A final question, because speaking to an audience of potential future um, Toyota Financial employees. If you're targeting the college kids and the grads, for those individuals, it can be difficult to decipher where to go because there's so much noise and it's all new and fresh. Speaking to an audience of potential future employees, what can you tell us about the Toyota Financial's environment, its culture, and what they could expect if they decide to embark upon an internship or an early stage ServiceNow role with you and your team?
Yeah. The good news is the fact that we are financial services. At the end of the day, we are also a regulated environment. And I don't say that lightly because one thing is the fact that for those in early careers, the first thing that you're going to realize is it's easy to develop fast, but there are guardrails that's actually protecting, everything to make sure it doesn't break, that you provide good service. So in Toyota Financial Services, we have the Toyota culture, which is actually great from a management perspective, solid process, people could come here to actually learn. And in terms of engineering and the different things that we use what everybody uses. Because for the most part, all the big companies, everybody uses, for example, Azure, AWS. Like I say, a lot of people use Terraform, some observability stack. So in terms of, your technology stack and the type of scripting that you do, it's all very similar. But what the secret sauce for Toyota is our culture. And it's the way that we make people feel, because at the end of the day, it's very customer centric. It's like if you work here, you have to put your shoes as a customer, and that is always like the first line. It's not the fast build. It's not the fast and sexy. It's always what works for the customer. So I think from and I hope I'm making sense here. What I'm basically trying to say is from a financial services standpoint in the technology stack, we're the same as everybody else.
Yeah.
For example, I came from Morgan Stanley, and we're using very, similar software, very similar process. Everybody has the same problems from a governance and compliance perspective. Morgan Stanley has obviously their international Toyota Financial Services, is more auto lending, so those are our regulatory folks that we're reporting to. So, but I think anybody, it's a joy to work here. And number one is because of the management culture and the strong process and the fact that it's stable, it's very stable. And so if anybody listening is in Plano, Texas, or within Dallas, definitely look us up because, we're definitely looking for talent across IT.
Peter, thank you so much for coming on finally. We've been looking forward to this one for quite a while and it didn't disappoint. I appreciate you coming on, sharing your story, especially because of the unique path that you've taken and where it's led you. And then most importantly, the new role that you've taken on and the exciting work that you've got with you and your team at Toyota Financial. I think this is a great episode for people who are early in their career and trying to figure out where they can develop and learn the right skill set and also work in a good culture. So wish you, the team, and everyone at Toyota Financial the very best of luck and look forward to having you back on the show again in the near future. Thank you so much.
Thanks, JP. Appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Alldus podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. We are available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and any Android podcast of choice. You can also head over to our website, www.alldus.com, to listen to more podcasts, view our open roles, and stay up to date with industry news. Thanks for listening and stay tuned for more great episodes coming very soon.